Hello, and welcome to the fourth Game Design Variety Hour with your host, Matthew Johnston. That's me. How are you going, everybody? Welcome on a somewhat chilly Monday afternoon, evening. It is now. Hope you're all well. Hope you had a good weekend since we last chatted. I had a fairly quiet weekend, I guess. Yeah, wasn't doing too much. Let me know if you know any. Hopefully, there won't be as many technical issues this time, and my webcam won't keep dropping out. Michael Fox shared some good advice about various technical cameras and microphones and things that I might look at. Hi Mandela, nice to see you. Thanks very much for joining. Yeah, so it seems that I'm still doing this four times in, so maybe at some point I might look to invest in something that's a little bit more professional. but how as it be. It's nice. Mandela's in the chat. Mandela and I were chatting yesterday about a new co-design that we're working on. I've been a big fan of Mandela's work. Actually, I'm really looking forward to get Mandela's first published game, Glasgow. If people haven't seen it before, it's in the two-player Lookout games line, and I love those two-player games that they put out, with the exception of Hengist, which was a bit of an odd spot on the quality. But from all I've heard, Glasgow is fantastic and definitely a good continuation of that line. So I look forward to playing it. Hello, welcome, Rolden Bones. Oh, Rory. Yep, sorry. I'm gonna have to be better at recognizing actual names from usernames. But thanks for joining, and thanks Fabio. Nice to see you. Mandela is saying I was aiming to be the next Hengist. Well, I think you failed already because it's actually playable. Hey, Aquasilus. Nice to see you. Yeah. Oh, so you've got to play it, Rory. Okay, great. Well, I look forward to it. Yeah, I have a copy on the way as we speak, but with the state of the world, postage and all that sort of stuff is a bit unusual, and it's not coming from within the Czech Republic. It's one of the new things about living in a new country where English is not the native language. You've got all these different, ways to try and find English language games, which is a bit of fun. But yeah, what did people get up to on the weekend? Anything fun? Anything enjoyable? Any good games that I should know about that you played that I should keep an eye out? We kept playing some Res Arcana. We played some Castles of Burgundy, which was quite good. I should look at my board game stats app, see what I played. Played some Silver and Gold, really great little game for Phil Walker Harding, sort of roll and write or flip and fill. So yeah, a bit of Metro X. Yeah, not too bad. And also play some prototypes. Does anyone else track their prototype plays in board game stats? I started doing it once. I saw, I think I saw Bruno Catala. He would track his prototype plays, and I'm not sure if at the end of the year I'm going to look at it and just be depressed by how little I've been playtesting my own games, or whether I'll be happy with what I've done or not. But I find that really great. I don't know if people use it or not, but board game stats would definitely recommend. Rory was working mostly. Finished Star Wars Unlock. Okay, great. If she loved, yeah, I really enjoy Unlock, so that's good. I'm looking forward. I'm actually a bit quite behind with Unlock generally. I think I've only played up to the third box, and I'm not sure. I'm a bit. I actually have a stack of escape room games, quite a few of the exits, and things like this, which I always save as sort of special occasions. But obviously with lockdowns and everything, those special occasions aren't around so much. And I would like to play. Maybe I should just break them out and play them with Teresa or something like that. But I always feel like you've got this experience that you can only play once, so you may as well make the most of it and play with a group of 3 or 4 people. But I'll keep. I was interested to see once they've gone into Star Wars, you wonder what the next IPs are going to be. I mean, in a way, it's kind of endless, which must be quite exciting to sort of work on those properties. Yeah, so today the rough plan is, a bit of general chit chat to start off with, a bit of small bit of news, I guess, and then the main bit of chat. I thought I'd chat a little bit about pitching. Firstly, a little bit of the kind of, I guess, the how I approach pitching, but also the kind of organizational things that goes into the larger conventions like Essen and Cannes and Nuremberg, the kind of things that I and Brett Gilbert do together, sort of manage what we're doing. People might be interested in that, I'm not sure. And chat a little bit about, pitching itself, some things I try and think about, I guess, when I'm pitching, and a bit of a reflection on what pitching's been like in the last month or so. I did some pitches during Virtual Essen. I mean, it's interesting, of course, and I'll get to that, that pitching now is not necessarily tied to conventions, not tied to set dates, but mentally I'm still in that mode of things always being tied to conventions. So I thought I'd sort of reflect a little bit on that experience and see what it's like. Of course, I don't know how successful I've been or not with all of that. And then, if I have time, I have got a surprise game at the end, and there is Clue. I chose this board game, On the Underground. Really great game, by the way, by Sebastian Bleasdale. This is the kind of second edition or remastered edition by Ludi Creations. Would really, really recommend it. It is a Metro game. It's great. You're building Metro lines. It's beautiful. It's wonderfully simple, actually. I'd say it's something on like a Ticket to Ride kind of level. And if you like Ticket to Ride, I think you might very well like this game. Hey, Basma, how are you going? Welcome. So yes, this is a clue to what I might play later on in the stream. So if anyone can guess what I might be playing, then you'll win prizes or points, or points make prizes, or as the saying goes. So we'll see what might come of it. So yeah, that's the general gist of what I think today will be it. It is not. That is actually a very good guess, Metro X. No, it's actually a video game. I have not. This is all very low tech. I'm not sure if it's readily apparent from the quality of the stream, but I'm running off the webcam from my laptop, and I have no other and the microphone from my laptop. There's no external of anything else. Oh wow, okay. Well, I didn't expect. Well done, Hal. Within 2 seconds, yeah, Mini Metro. So for those who don't know Mini Metro, it's a really great video game, light sort of video game. It's a lot of fun, and I haven't played it for a couple of years, actually. I played it quite a bit when it first came out, but I thought it might be a nice sort of chill thing to get back into. Axelis saying, just saw a really nice talk on digital pitching from Sydney Engelstein. Yeah, actually, in a way, her talk was an impetus for me to talk about pitching today. I also watched the stream. I caught up with it a bit later, and I think it is really interesting. And it is true, you don't get the perspective of someone on the other side, from an acquisition manager, that often. I know someone else, Alex Yeager, who used to be with Mayfair /Lookout, also has done quite a few talks. I'm not sure if any of them are online. But you rarely get that other side of things. And I mean, in a way, I one thing that stood out for me from listening to that talk. So firstly, would recommend check it out. It's on the Tabletop Network. But if you look on Twitter, Tabletop Mentoring Program, they were sort of co-hosting it, and I think you can catch it up on YouTube. If anyone wants to drop it in the chat, that'd be Aquasaurus. You could drop in the chat, that'd be great. So would recommend checking out that firstly, and they've got actually a really good series of videos that they've been making during this time. But the thing for me that one of the things I remember when she was saying that she gets something between 100 and 200 submissions every 1 or 2 weeks, or say 100 submissions a week via email, which just kind of boggles the mind a little bit, and makes you feel quite I feel quite fortunate that, not that I don't have to compete with that, but I think it's a very different kind of game now than it was even when I started designing and pitching 10 years ago. Thankfully, things have become more professional in a way, but they've also become more competitive, and there are more publishers, but there's also more ways to submit easily. So it's, and I might touch a bit on that. And I think, please let me know in the comments if there's, what your perspective on it, I guess, what your experiences pitching have been like. Because it's hard for me to, in a way, to come at it, totally new, because a lot of these, I've built up these relationships with publishers. So, I'm not just sending an email to an inbox to someone who doesn't know who I am. And actually, even if it is a new publisher, I'm lucky enough that I can reference the games I've already had published. They can look me up on BoardGameGeek. So that speaks for itself a little bit. But I think if you don't have if you don't have a game published before and you don't have a prior relationship, it's a very different world out there. So hopefully some of the things I say might be useful, but it's also going to be a little bit more of a just this is window into what the life of a game designer is. Might not be relevant, especially if you're coming to it new, or you're going to have different challenges probably. Thanks very much for that, Cool. So yeah, this tabletop network, there's the link. So yeah, would really recommend checking it out if you can. So well, very briefly, look at this, the incredible professional banners that I've pre-prepared for this. So the only thing I wanted to talk about is a new sign. Recently, I signed one of my prototypes with a publisher, and I thought, well, if I can't share it on stream, who else am I going to share it with? Well, I've told some other people. It's funny, I talk to my parents. We talk once a week, and I have to. My mum always. We have this Google Doc where I put the games, and as things are signed, I put them on, because for her, it's the only way to sort of keep up with things. So she was just asking, have you updated the document? And I realized I hadn't, so I did that. Thanks very much, everybody. And this is, and this is something that I'm going to get a bit used to with streaming as well, how open you can be about things, but it's actually a children's game. So I started designing children's games with Theo Rivera, who is a French designer, and formerly he was a developer and project manager at both Yellow and Repos Production. Great guy. We'd met for a long time, and we're good friends. And so we started co-designing on various things. And actually, this is the second children's game we've designed that has been signed. I hope the first one, which was signed with Jekko, which is a French children's game publisher, called Around the World, and I hope it will come out. Well, I hope it'll come out next year. We'll see. But this game we signed with Loki, which is I can show you just quickly for those who don't know Loki. They are a French publisher, and they're sort of an imprint of Yellow, and you might have heard of like SOS Dino, which is the game of Theo's as well, and a few other kind of like smaller games for younger children. They've got really beautiful components. I wonder if I can see, like they've got this beautiful wooden carousel in this game. You can see here, for example, which is just amazing. I'm not sure if it'll play. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, like the production quality is just incredible in a way of what Yellow does. This is the board that you've got for this carousel manager, Monsieur Carousel. So yeah, we're really thrilled to be making a game with them, and we're hopefully going to have some really nice pieces as well. We've got it. Yeah, it was the first. Theo is more experienced with me with 3D printing. It was one of probably actually the first game I've ever signed that had 3D printed components as really a core part of the game. So yeah, we're really psyched, and so that's the kind of the brief news, but it probably most likely won't be released until probably 2022. So it's going to be at least a year and a half. So yeah, I'll hopefully I'll have more news, as we go on. But yeah, it was a really nice thing, and that was, in terms of pitching and all that. Actually, Theo kind of did a lot of that for me. So sometimes I get a real benefit from working with co-designers. He obviously is very well plugged into the French, the sort of francophone publishing world, and there's a lot of really great, children's games companies So yeah, he did the sort of the heavy lifting there. But yeah, it was really nice actually, and yeah, is Checo's the bomb. Yeah, they are. It's interesting. I don't think I was as aware of them that much. I mean, I don't have children, and I hadn't ever bought games from them. But I think once I signed a game with them, suddenly I started noticing their games everywhere, and they do. I think they don't just do games; they do more sort of toys. They do, you know, play things, and you know, it's all really great quality and really beautiful artwork and components as well. So I'm also quite excited to see what that's going to be. I might ask them whether I'm allowed to share some of the artwork or things like that. I might try and share it on a future stream. So yeah, so it's my new foray into children's game. We're working on another game, another children's game now. We're also working on a few other designs. I'd also recommend he is also streaming. I will try and I'll try and find his link somehow and put it in. He's streaming in French mainly, so maybe it's not as useful for everybody else here. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun working with him, and it's sort of a cool, relatively new collaboration, I guess. You know, we've been working a year and a half, maybe even more than that actually now. So maybe not that new, but yeah, no, it's always a nice thing to have a game signed. But you know, as you learn as you go further on in this kind of industry, that you know, signing is a fantastic thing and it's very exciting, but it's the moment that you actually hold the game is the real thing, because so much can happen between now and then. I mean, especially in these times when, you know, production schedules and all sorts of things are very much in flux. So you know, cautiously optimistic about all that. So yeah, gosh, I've removed myself. That was the main bit of news. So yeah, a bit of fun. So I guess, yeah, we'll head on to thinking about pitching. Just have a quick cup of tea. Yeah. So I've been pitching games for, I guess, 8 or 9 years, something like that. And there were sort of two main parts that I want to sort of cover off. And yeah, well, thanks very much, Bess, and thanks everyone for the kind words about the publishing. Yeah, it's nice to it's nice to be able to share these things. I think I might have said before, designing is quite a solitary pursuit for much of the time, and also even especially in these days when you get something signed, it's just the form of an email, which is very nice, but you know, it's nice to be able to share things a bit. So that's good. Great. back to where I was. I'm still learning the streamer's trick of being able to sort of like mix attention streams. So I apologize if I go off on one way and then come back. But I trust that you'll stay with me. So yeah, so pitching. So two main aspects I wanted to cover. One was a sort of more organizational aspect. How do you manage the bigger conventions, or indeed, I guess, dealing with multiple publishers at one time or multiple projects? I think it's one of the things that, you know, and this was also another piece of advice which Sydney really debunked, and rightly so, about, you know, pitching games to multiple publishers at the same time is very acceptable. I've very rarely had any pushback from that practice. But the moment you start doing that, of course, it gets a bit more complicated. You have to sort of track where the game is with multiple people and what's going on with that. And there are some tips and tricks, I guess, that I've used that might be useful to other people. So I'll sort of look at that kind of organizational aspect. And then the other part, we'll talk a bit about, well, the pitching itself and what that comprises. A few things first up that I think is quite different for me, and in a way a bit of a reflection about how the industry has changed. The way that, you know, I make initial contact with publishers. So, I mean, maybe this is the best examples. If, say, I'm trying to contact a new publisher that I've never worked with before now, it's still done mainly through email, and you know, usually the harder thing sometimes is finding the right contact. Thankfully, on the internet now, you can find a lot of contact details, either for just submissions directly. So if you go to different publishers' web pages, often they'll have a section about submissions or at least contact, which might tell them. In fact, for example, we could even check right now. I still have the Loki page. Oh gosh, the Loki page up. We could see if we can find. So say I wanted to pitch something to Loki, I would probably, I guess, check contact. Let's see. They want a word with Loki. Okay. Oh no, so they specifically say, are you an illustrator or game designer interested in working with us? Fill in the form, we'll get back to you. So they have a form, and you could put in your name and you could put your message about, I'm a game designer. Maybe here are some things I've worked on before, or if not, you could give a sort of a short summary of the game. And I'll go into that a little bit later. But yeah, so you find the right sort of contact thing, and I think in some ways that's got a bit easier. There are other really great resources, such as Cardboard Edison they maintain a database of different publishers who are open to submissions. And I think if you support them at a certain level on their Patreon, then you're able to get access to that. That's really valuable. There are other efforts now to sort of collate lots of publishers together. So there was the sort of the pitch project, where you could put in your sell sheets, and then that would sort of get you access to a big pool of publishers who would be looking at them, and you could potentially pitch to. So that making contact is kind of the first thing generally. But in that initial contact, I generally don't try and put too much detail into what I'm doing. Hey, welcome, Bram and Russell. Nice to see you. Thanks very much for joining in. We're talking about pitching today. And so, I always think less is more in the initial contact with the publisher. I think you want to give them enough to reason for actually look at the email and why they might want to respond. But I always, in a way, I'd like to drive towards a way to actually contact them in person. So whether that's before a fair, usually I'd be contacting publishers, say, a month or 2 months before Essen, trying to set up an in-person meeting with the publisher. Or now I would be looking to try and set up a short Skype meeting or similar Zoom or something like that. I think, that is not only, I think it's always an easier way to pitch your game, in a real-time kind of capacity, but it also helps you start building up a relationship with the publisher, which is hard to do just via email. Oh, Rasmus, sorry. Rasmus is a fellow game designer who I originally met when he was in Cambridge as part of the playtesting group there. But he is Danish, has now gone back to Copenhagen, so I guess is joining us from Copenhagen. But thanks very much for joining, Rasmus. So I think that those initial contacts should always be just driving towards essentially getting a meeting. Obviously, before that happens, and when you're deciding who you're contacting, you're trying to target a publisher that is going to suit your game. And this is said in a lot of places where you're really trying to you should look at. I think that's the part of work that you should do before you even think of pitching to a publisher. And in a way, I'd say that one of the things I think that I personally have improved the most with is that kind of, I guess, intuition or sense of games fitting with certain publishers, or why projects might be interesting to different publishers or not. And I think it's also one of the ways that you can very quickly gain the respect of a publisher, because it shows that you do respect their time, and that you've put in a bit of time and work, and you have a sense of the market. You're not I guess, colloquially, when you talk with these publishers, when you look at yes, they can get crazy numbers of submissions, but a really good percentage of them generally are from people who aren't that aware of the tabletop games industry or the hobby game market at all. They're people who've worked on a game, it's their first game, their only game, somewhat in isolation from everything else, maybe haven't playtested with a lot of people. And the fact is, if in that initial contact, you can already show that publisher, A, you know who they are, you know what games they make, so you know who they are, and if you show some idea of how your game fits into the broader gaming landscape, there's very simple ways and brief ways you can do that. As Aquilus is talking about roll and writes here, knowing what a roll and write is, and talking about it's a sort of a lighter roll and write. It's a very quick phrase, but it immediately tells the publisher, okay, I now know this person knows, you know, at least has some idea of what they're talking about. And that, I think that elevates you already, you know, above quite a number of designers, you know, and that ultimately you're just trying to, you know, one, just make it sound like you're sort of serious about what you're doing. You've done a bit of work. You're not somebody who's completely detached from the sort of the scene, not the scene, the knowing what's going on in the industry, which is good. And also showing I guess an awareness of what a publisher might want. So it's not only just enough to kind of show that you know the general scene, but when you can kind of connect with the publisher, the moment, you know, I always think sometimes when you meet a publisher, a really nice moment is when they have a reaction, which is not necessarily about them wanting to publish the game or not, but it's about this sort of meeting of the minds, or them being really happy with the game that you've showed them, because, you know, it has shown that they get, you know, this designer gets what we're doing, gets why their game might be a good fit for us. Of course, there are so many other things that go into the decision, which might lead it to be, you know, published or not. But you know, getting in the door and is not, you know, it's a big thing. It's very useful to have prior experience, to have prior games published, but, you know, gaining the respect is not necessarily just about that. If, you know, I think there's a lot of things, you know, things you can do in that way to show you know, you've done your work and you know the publisher. So that's always stood me in quite good stead, and I'd really recommend it. And I think it's the thing you can sort of chat about. You know, if you don't know who to pitch to, you know, talk to other designers. I mean, that also can be very useful, because you might learn about what publishers are maybe not best to work with, or then, you know, it's not worth, you know, pitching them to, or maybe designers know what's, you know, some designers might know, oh, that company, they've got 3 roll-on rights in the queue already, so maybe, you know, certainly send the game to them, but be aware that maybe that's going to be a bit tricky. So yeah, I think it's quite interesting. Hey, Nicola, thanks very much for joining. Yeah, so, oh gosh, I've turned on Siri or whatever. I must have said the magic word or something like that. Hey, Rob. Hey, Cosmos. Welcome. You're not late. Halfway through, we're talking about pitching to publishers, and, you know, me trying to. I need some sort of teleprompt behind me to keep my train of thought, but hopefully it's not too bad. You have to hope they like it a bit too many eggs. Oh yeah, talking about pitching. Yeah, pitching the wrong right. Yeah, I think pitching. I mean, actually, maybe we have a publisher in the chat. Maybe if you have a perspective about people pitching games to you, or, you know, what you like to see when somebody gets in contact for the first time. You know, what kind of gets you over the hump from. You know, you know, if you have no idea who this person is, you know, what are the things you look for in that email or that first contact that says, oh, okay, I'm interested in meeting this person, or at least exchanging emails with them. So, oh yes, also speed dating. I didn't talk about that. Yeah, there's more and more chances to do speed dating. I'm not sure if there's sort of virtual speed dating now. Maybe that's the thing. Rob, don't need to worry about pitching. The queuing up to something. Excellent. I'm glad to hear it. Hey, Simon, how are you going? Simon is a developer and business manager for Alley Cat Games. Really great publisher who obviously worked with before. And also a publisher himself of Dranda Publishing. Please correct me if I got that wrong. So maybe you've also got, I don't know if you've been getting pitches from designers, Simon, you know, what you kind of look at to sort of, what are the kind of good signs that you feel like, oh, I want to keep meeting with this person, whether or not you're interested in the game. Dranda Games, sorry. Apologies. Yeah, so it's I think you're just trying to get to a meeting, and that's my, you know, it's of course the thing that's most changing right now, because I find in-person meetings are the best way to work with publishers. I find it very difficult to do. Excuse me. I find it quite difficult to function via email and sell sheets, and I'm not very good at making videos. I need to get better. But, you know, it's in that moment of pitching in person that I think, at least I'm the most comfortable. And I think in some ways it's different. It's also a lot easier when you can sort of gauge the reaction of the other person. It's a lot about awareness of, you know, have you got that person's interest? Do you need to emphasize something a bit more because they're not quite getting something or not. You know, you get a really good sense of that in person or via Skype potentially, although it's a bit harder. So yeah, I mean, this year was the first time I was doing virtual pitching just via Skype. It was with publishers I knew already, so a little bit different, obviously, because I sort of knew the person I was talking to, but actually it was quite smooth. And in some ways, you're able to still have a common experience. You know, for me, pitching, you know, in that meeting is very much, you know, getting the meeting, you know, having some sort of chit chat to sort of start with. You know, you don't want to just launch into business straight away, you know, but, you know, and then, you know, for each game, mostly you're giving a very brief synopsis of, you know, this is a game for X number of players, this is the kind of style of game, this is the name, and a bit of a like tagline for theme. And then you're just trying to get it out, you know, on the table in some way or form, enough to be able to show the publisher a bit, to be able to move the piece around as you're sort of talking about the game. Brett and I have a really good kind of relationship with that. We're so used to pitching together. We pitch together at all the big conventions. I'm always the one who gets the prototype out on the table, sets it up a bit, moves around the pieces. So Brett will be talking and, you know, it's like, and if player X does this, and I'll move the pawn a little bit to show what player X is doing. So you only just have one person talking. Otherwise, you know, it can get a bit chaotic if both of us think we both have to talk at the same time. But virtually, it works really well. You know, if you're set up with Tabletop Simulator, or even if you have any sort of graphics. So I have for example, I have a roll and write or sort of a flip and fill game that I'm pitching at the moment. And I have a Tabletop Simulator version, but also I can just show the sheet as a PDF, and you just share your screen. And actually, you know, it's broadly the same. You can move around pieces as you're talking about things. You know, you can highlight certain parts. You can zoom into what you want to show. You can, you know, put a close up of a card or something if you need to do that. And, you know, it's all, in a way, it's even easier because you can go through, if you need to pitch several games, you can just load up a new module in Tabletop Simulator. So actually, I thought it worked really well. And I think some people in the chat are sort of talking about virtual speed dating, that there was virtual speed dating at UK Games Expo this year. Yeah. And House talking about pitched a game at the UK virtual speed dating this year. It seemed pretty smoothly run. Oh, that's good. It's good. Axel's pitched 17 times in a row. Wow. Okay, that is quite that is an endurance sport by itself. So well done. I see. Yeah, Now's the same. Put me off being implying before. Yeah. I mean, maybe I'll get to that a little bit in the organization. I think that's on a bit of a different level, and I think you get more and more used to it as you're going. You know, we have a lot of meetings in these bigger publishers, but even then, you've got lots of little breaks, and I don't know if I could even do 17 pitches in a row. I think that is quite an effort. So well done there. I missed a question from Rob, I think, earlier. Missed the earlier discussion, but it seems long-term relationships are all important. How often do you approach someone new? Yeah, I was talking a little bit about that. I would say, so I tend to think of things in conventions, and if I think about Essen, for example, which probably has the biggest conglomeration of new publishers or publishers in general, I think every year, often I am approaching 2 or 3 new publishers. It's not my job, but it's something I'm a bit more used to than Brett. I'm usually more up with what are the new releases coming out and what are maybe the new companies or who has left one company to spin something off another place. And there, often it's just if I like the games a publisher is making and I feel like the games I make could fit in that publisher's line, I want to meet with them. I want to, I want to see if we could form a relationship. And I do often am emailing cold still to the publishers. Like, for example, I remember we emailed, for example, Thunderglyph games. So they did Zen Garden. They've got a series of smaller games. Pot de Van, I think, is one, and that Ranch, the Ranch Roll and Write, which I'm missing the name of in my head. So and I just really love kind of the visuals of the games they're making. So I was sort of like, okay, it'd be great to meet with them, and we make kind of lighter games that could fit the kind of smaller boxes stuff they're doing. And we had a meeting, and it went quite well. It hasn't eventuated into more of a relationship from that, and I guess that's a little bit. I guess that's the flip side. A lot of the talking about pitching is, what are you doing as a designer to want to be able to keep meeting with to meet with publishers and to form that relationship. But also, it's in some ways when you keep going at this, it's about working. Which publishers do you want to keep meeting with? Where are you using your time the best? Are you wasting your time meeting with a publisher who might never sign anything or doesn't seem very interested in what you're doing? And so it could be a bit difficult. It's hard for all people on both sides. But generally, I think, if you look back from the year before and you go, okay, we showed them some games, but then we didn't really hear anything from them. I like to email, kind of follow up somewhere in the kind of 3 to 6 months after the initial pitch. I think that's the kind of amount of time you need to give publishers to consider games. And when we get in contact, it's not out of an expectation that they've play tested the game in that 3 or 6 months. It's just to kind of, touch base and sort of go like, is this, just to even let them know, like, you still have the prototype, are you intending to try it out? And I think if a publisher doesn't really show any interaction with that, it doesn't have to be very much. Again, I don't think, it's hard to, I don't think you can expect that a publisher will absolutely playtest something within a period of time. But if they're not communicative and, for whatever reason, then, that just means that maybe it's not worth the time to keep pitching them, because if you haven't heard anything about the games you pitched last year, well, why pitch games in the new year? So, it's about fit. It's similar to working with co-designers or with friends. Things can seem promising, and you start out and you try to form a relationship, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And there can be lots of different reasons. It can be about the games, whether they're a fit or not with the company. It can be even kind of a personal fit with the the person you're meeting. That might be just one person in the company. If you met someone else from the company, maybe you'd have a very different relationship. So parts of it are there's an element of chance and luck. Did you see that person at a good time? I once tweeted after an Essen, you have to remember that these at Essen, like if you're someone who's accepting pitches, you're sitting in a small cubicle. If you're lucky, like if you even have your own cubicle, sometimes you're in a kind of a storeroom with people, climbing over you all the time to get games or stashing coffee or whatever. And you've got to kind of do business in amongst all that. You're sitting there, for 4 days, sometimes 5 days. You barely get to leave. We've had publishers have to apologize and run to the bathroom, for the first 5 minutes because they're like, we didn't get a break, like, for the whole day. They're just as pushy as you are, and remembering that is just to be sympathetic to their point, and sometimes they're not going to be in the best mood or in the most receptive way for your game, and so that's another thing to kind of keep in mind when pitching. I always like to think that long-term relationships are important, and they're more important, I think, than signing a game right then and right now. I think if you really treat them as real people that you're working with, it's not just a business transaction, and you look to something that you're hoping to form a relationship where you're going to meet that person regularly in many more years and many more conventions, then I think if you look at it like that, I think generally you can't go wrong. And I think the same is when you email people, as Cosmos says, we are human too. Yes. And I think that, just as, Will Wheaton is like, just don't be a dick, and if you just treat people with respect and treat them as people you want to work with or get to know. And it's not just about some sort of business relationship. It's not just about trying to sell someone. I mean, again, like just think about, someone walked up to your door, selling whatever, knocking your door, and it's all, if they're all just about selling something, we all react to that. We recoil from that kind of behavior, and the same thing is with pitching. So, and I realized that I think in the conversation, it should be noted also that obviously I have a lot of privilege to be able to do that. I can afford to go to conventions to meet with people. There are all sorts of obstacles in the way of other designers to be able to do that. and there are great people. You know, the Tabletop Mentorship Program, for example, is giving these micro grants to help people, other designers, to sort of overcome those barriers that might be put in their way. Virtual pitching also, in a way, is making it a bit more egalitarian, I hope. I don't know if anyone has any feedback with how they feel like the change has been, you know, from in-person conventions to virtual pitching, if that's kind of made it a lot easier for you to pitch to publishers, which is a great thing. We're going to see more games coming out from a diverse group of people. So yeah, that's, I think, slightly randomly points. And for me, the pitching this year was good. I pitched to Cosmos, the German edition, and it pitched to Cosmos, pitched to Blue Orange, and in both cases, you know, it went really well. It was quite smooth with the virtual thing. I mean, the only sort of downside is when you're in an in-person convention, you can just hand them the prototype at the end if you want. Whereas this, you have to mail it, but that's not a problem. And yeah, I think that for me, the change is going to be decoupling design. So for me, for a very long time, Essen and Nuremberg, or, you know, there's sort of been 2 or 3 conventions a year that I'd go to, and I'd always be designing as a goal for those conventions. I'd say, oh, I really want 5 games to be able to pitch at this convention. Not necessarily a very good strategy, I would say, for those who are listening along. I think, you know, certainly not quality is, quality is more important than quantity. But for whatever reason, I just always, when you're meeting with so many different publishers, I want something to be able to show these publishers. I want to make that meeting worthwhile. And so often I'll sort of lead up to a fair, and I'd go, do I have a kind of a lighter card game, small card game for those publishers who want a small card game? Do I have something a little bit larger, a bit more strategic? Do I have something with maybe some innovative components for certain publishers who want that? So it's, you know, I'd always sort of set my watch by these conventions, and it means that I would have this regular thing of, you know, a few months out, okay, now I've got to sort of whittle down the list of games I'm sort of working on to try and focus on the ones I think I can get ready for this convention. Of course, now with no conventions and with virtual pitching, you can kind of pitch anytime. And in some ways, of course, decoupling yourself from that kind of cycle of conventions also can be a way to stand out a little bit, or to not be lost in a crowd. Obviously, there are so many people who are pitching at these conventions at Essen, at UK Games Expo, at Nuremberg. You know, to be able to pitch at a slightly different time, you know, maybe you've got a bit of a better chance to sort of, you know, to be a bit more by yourself. So I think that personally is going to be a bit of a change for me that I need to get a bit more used to, and just get a bit more used to, you know, approaching publishers, you know, via email to set up these meetings, not at a convention. You know, you get into a very easy kind of routine. And I mean, that's actually not a bad kind of segue into sort of even just a brief look at the kind of organizational thing. So, you know, I've gone to about 9 Essens or something like that now. And, you know, we've got a very easy system now with how we think about, you know, how we organize things. So, you know, obviously you're sending out emails, you know, a month to 6 weeks before, and then, you know, I'll start populating just a very simple kind of table, essentially, which is, you know, it's a schedule. If I was more technologically minded, maybe I would actually think about using some better software that might, you know, automate reminders or things like that. I know people use, you know, Outlook or other sort of programs, but for me, it was just always easier just to have like an actual hard copy. And so as we make, you know, as we set meetings, then you just put them in this table, and you can see that, yeah, it is quite busy. I don't know how many meetings it ends up being. Sometimes you're even doing, you know, 2 meetings within an hour, like each half an hour, which can be a bit hard. Cosmos talks about Trello. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I have using Trello a little bit with some co-designers. And I think I'd love to move on to that, actually, to kind of balance all my current projects in process. Sort of, you can't see it in camera, but I have a rather horrible system of just, you know, I've talked before about my many like notes, which are written on the back of old playtesting cards and things. But yeah, I still am sort of stubbornly in the kind of physical realm when it comes to that. But yeah, so I mean, that's where all the sort of organization starts, is filling out this this thing, and we try and pack it as sort of jam packed as we can. Although I have to admit that as the years have gone on, I'm more and more wary of not doing it too much, because it's a lot. Whatever 35 meetings in 3.5 days is a bit crazy. Jay Foolsguard talks about for a virtual pitch, how fancy are your video setups? Is it more or less the same as this? Yeah, I mean it's not even this. I mean it's I basically the ones I've done have just been through Skype, and I just share my screen, and I'll just share. If I have Tabletop Simulator open, I'll have that, and I'll just share the screen for that. So it hasn't been. I haven't got any kind of external camera set up. I haven't got the physical prototype. Thankfully, I don't have a game yet where that would be really important. It can be quite tricky with, if you have a prototype that doesn't really work in Tabletop Simulator, then you've got to think about something new. But yeah, it's not much more than that. I'm still kind of new to it as well, so I'm not saying it's the best thing as possible. But yeah, that's the way I've been doing it basically. Yeah, and Cosmos still uses the Trello. Trello is easy to share tasks and info, and helps keep them on track. Yeah, and I think that's important also when you're working in a team. Actually, you see here, this is actually, it's not just for me, but it's also for Brett and for Trevor Benjamin, other designer. So we're it's even color coded based on who has to go to which meeting. And sometimes even now we've actually had to, like Brett and I have had to actually split up because we haven't been able to meet all the pitch publishers together. So sometimes I'll go to a publisher and Brett will go to another one so we can fit them all in, which is a bit crazy. Yes, you mostly just see us running through the halls. Well, yeah, I mean, as Essen gets bigger and bigger, it gets harder and harder to even make, making 2 meetings in the same hour is basically impossible. And I try and think about try to schedule things where the meetings are spatially close to each other as well. But sometimes you make a big mistake and realize you have to run across 4 halls in 5 minutes, and it's mostly impossible. Josh, okay, but then you have to game it too. Yeah, but it depends. If the other thing I've done sometimes is if I had any digital files for the game, so say I had cards that I was printing off for the real game, I might pitch by just having the card file open rather than having physical cards. I could just show them the card file, which is still enough to, show them the concept. Or if you've got a board, you can show them the board or things like that. I think I'm still, and we've done that as well. That we were pitching one of the Good Little Games, for example, which have print and play A4 sheets, and I was just showing them the A4 sheets of cards and things like that. I think you make the most of what you need, I guess, to show the prototype. What are the important aspects? And I think virtual pitching probably makes you think, actually, what are the few elements that you really need to show to get the game across. That might not be the whole prototype. It might not have to be a physical prototype that you're showing on camera. Maybe there's ways to show digital files or documents or PDFs or things that'll do the job. Axelis found Tabletop Simulator to be a bit laggy with screen sharing. Yeah, I mean, I find Tabletop Simulator, well, it makes my laptop sound like an airline about to take off. Thankfully, I haven't had any problems with it dropping out, but it can be a bit frustrating, definitely. So yeah, that's what I've done these, a few times. I'm not sure if it'll be what I always do. I don't know what it would be like meeting with a new publisher, but it seems that most publishers are getting more, they're mostly adept with Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia. And I think that's something that is probably a requirement now when you get in contact with these publishers, to talk about, well, if you want to pitch via one of these platforms, is that fine? But of course, when you're screen sharing, then it gets around any problems of them being able to load it up, and it reduces any problems. I have also had one, I guess it was a pitch, but it was with a publisher, that I sort of knew, and we had scheduled to kind of play the game, which is a little bit different. And that is when you need everybody to load into Tabletop Simulator. And you have Skype going at the same time, so you're talking. So that worked well, but again, that was with the publisher who sort of suggested doing that. So I think you've just got to, go with what check with the publishers. Kind of maybe they have particular preferences. Maybe they would like to be able to log into the Tabletop Simulator. Maybe they, sometimes with meetings you don't realize that a publisher might actually want to play the game. We've definitely had meetings where you think you're just going to do a quick 5-minute kind of overview. But then they're like, no, we want to play a few rounds. Let's do it. So checking in with the publisher and seeing like, well, actually, would you like to have access to Tabletop Simulator? And knowing that ahead of time can make it a little bit easier for you to set up the server and things like that. So yeah, I think as Simon says, yeah, Tabletop Simulator or Tabletoper is kind of a requirement now, and it's been a thing I've also had to get used to. If people are interested, I can also show my kind of design process to go from idea to get a prototype into Tabletop Simulator now. I had been quite, obviously I was quite used to making physical prototypes, so I was quick at that, and I had to kind of come up with a new, not a completely new workflow, but now I'm pretty good at doing it. It was tricky at the start, but once you sort of, there's definitely a few tips and tricks that can make things a bit easier. And the only other thing, in terms of organization is also keeping track of, who you've pitched games to and when. So, we just have this massive Google sheet, which has all the games across the top and all the publishers down the side. And, this is amassed over, about a decade, I guess. And, you just enter in the intersection between the publisher and the prototype to show when you showed it to them. It's color coded, gray if they've passed on the game, yellow if they have the prototype, not color coded if it's sort of somewhat ambiguous sort of answer. And this is the way to kind of keep up with remembering, like, have I shown that publisher that game or not? Can help you sort of plan things. And then once we sign a game, it gets moved into the other kind of the other sort of I just hide it in a different part of the spreadsheet essentially. But I definitely recommend. I mean, obviously, it's this is something it's a different problem for different people. If you're only pitching one game to a few publishers, maybe you don't need. But it's good. I definitely recommend always taking notes about a meeting after you've taken it, and that's what I use to be able to then populate the spreadsheet later. So, would definitely recommend at least taking good notes. And even if you are pitching a couple of publishers, start up a spreadsheet and just put in the details for those publishers and the games that you showed them, because it doesn't take very long for it to become hard enough to remember what you did last year, especially as you start meeting new publishers and you'll think about, oh, maybe I want to pitch that older game to that publisher, and have I done that or not, and remembering all those things. So we definitely recommend, as Aquasaurus said, stops you from accidentally pitching it again. I've definitely done that in some times when I haven't been very good at keeping notes. So and this is my speciality anyway. Like, I think I'll just diss Brett on stream. I'm not sure if he's watching, probably not. But I think it's good that I've kept doing this. I think it'd be harder for Brett doesn't keep up on top of it as much. So so that is the kind of the organizational bit. But yeah, it's a new world, I guess, for everybody, as we know, but at the same time, hopefully, we can make the most of it. And I'm going to try and reach out to some new publishers virtually now. There's definitely publishers that I haven't met with before that would be good to. So it would be good to kind of explore how that's going to go. Cosmos has another bit of advice: and change your email slightly. We have 2 email addresses, so we do notice a standard mail out. Yeah, that's true, actually. I mean, it is often very tempting when you're at a big convention, or even if you're pitching now and you want to show your game to a lot of different publishers. It's very easy to do a copy and paste, and it's best not to, actually. Or just have a part of the email, but then always write another part of it specific to that publisher. I mean, obviously, if you have a couple of lines that's describing the game, yes, you're probably not going to have to reword that every time. But I think, again, when I was sort of talking about showing that that publisher, why that game might be a fit for that publisher, and that has to be targeted and different for each publisher you approach. Just all those little things. Again, it's about building towards a longer relationship, and if you could do your best not to make those missteps early on, it can definitely help you out. That being said, we all make mistakes. I've definitely done this as well, and we're all human. So and it's best just to be upfront and just go, oh, sorry about that. I was trying to get emails out. and just move on from that as best as you can, I think, and that will work well. Great. So I don't know if anyone has any questions about pitching, or if I was just on a stream of consciousness for the last 30-35 minutes. Hope it was roughly useful for people. But as always, feel free to ask me questions on Twitter or elsewhere, or things you'd want me to sort of cover in the future. I think now I would like to play a game, actually, because it's nice to talk about something else maybe for a bit. Now we're going to see how well this works. Obviously, I'm hoping that my laptop won't light on fire when I try to play a game and stream at the same time, because Tiny Islands before was obviously a bit easier. So let's just see as I launch this up if it works or not. And you also have to tell me if you can actually hear the music. I don't know if you can have the music or not, because it has really, really, really nice music, and I can hear it in my, from my computer, but maybe it doesn't go via the stream. I'm not sure. Let's see if I can. Will it? No. Oh well, if you can't hear the music, then I'm sorry, but it has really, really lovely chill music. Yeah, thanks very much, Cosmos. Thanks for dropping by. Nikki, sorry, thank you. It's hard. I will get better at that. Sorry for getting people's names wrong. Apologies. But thanks for dropping by, Nikki. Great. Okay, Josh. No music. Yeah, I don't. If anyone knows how to make StreamYard work through the screen sharing part, or how to kind of make that work, but it doesn't seem like I have. Trying to see if there's any ways to do it. Oh, I should remove this button. Real professional here. Okay, well we'll have to go without the music, I'm afraid. So you can get Mini Metro on Steam. You could probably play it on iOS too by now, I guess. It's an absolutely delightful game, and it's one of those games which is just very chill. If you're not too worried about getting amazing scores, it's just great to sort of relax with, and just and it has just such a nice flow to it. So what I was thinking how to do is to just play sort of a starting level, just kind of show how it works if anyone's not aware of Mini Metro. And then I was going to try the daily challenge. I should note that I haven't played this for quite a while, and it's the kind of game that starts easy and gets harder and harder, and you'll see I'll quickly get out of my depth. But let's see how well we go, and how well I do to talk at the same time. Rasmus asks, have I tried Hades yet? No, I haven't. Yeah, I was chatting on a different stream that I should try it. I'm not a big first-person shooter or that kind of game, but yeah, so many people are talking about it that I think I should try it. So that it might be another Matthew tries stream and makes full of stuff. So play. You can choose lots of different metros, and also the sort of the graphic design is amazing. With these. It actually looks like they changed the background color and the colors of the lines. But we'll do London, the easiest, or the sort of the starting map. I'm not sure how hard or so you start with these stations, and stations have a shape, and you get new passengers that turn up at the stations. So this little triangle wants to go to the triangle station. So you can just drag and make a line, and you connect two stations, and each line starts with a single carriage that goes just automatically back and forward. So now I need to connect, these people need to connect here. So maybe I'll connect this line here, make a new line. And now, you can see the little shapes going along in the carriage, and they travel. And once they get to their destination, then they just hop off and they're gone, and you score some points. But otherwise, you're delivering them. So if they need to, this square needs to get up to this square, but what they're going to do now is they'll hop off the train here, and now they're waiting. They've essentially switched trains, switched lines, and now they'll go up to this square. And you can extend the lines really easy. You just grab the end of the line and drag it up to a new line. And so now I've extended this line, and I've got I've got 3 lines going, You have some limits in the game about usually the number of lines you can make. So I think I probably have already reached my limit. You can see down the bottom there that there are these only 3 colors. So I can't make a new line. So I might do this, for example. So I can extend a line. And of course, you're sort of trying to balance, what type of stations are served on the line, how easy it is for different people to get to a particular station, how many changes do they have to make. And there is different frequencies of the different shapes that you kind of learn. So square, usually there are fewer squares. There are usually lots of triangles and circles, but few squares. So, it sort of mimics, I guess, the real life thing of, there are a few destinations that everyone wants to get to, kind of like downtown. And then there's kind of more suburbs or peripheral things where there's not necessarily as many people wanting to go into. Yeah, and it does look lovely. And actually with the music, I wish I could find out a way to make the music play. It just suits it perfectly. It's this very chilled out kind of music. I don't know how else to put it. I may be doing a terrible job, and you sort of, it's all in real time, so you're trying to monitor how things are going. And then it's broken up. There's a time going up in the right-hand corner, and basically you go through a week, and then at the end of the week you get something new. So I've got a new locomotive now, and then you get a very simple choice of what extra thing you want. So if you have another line, obviously you can make a new line, so you have more flexibility in terms of how you're kind of arranging things, because obviously long lines, they take longer for the train to go one end to the other. So you can have, if you have passengers waiting at one end, basically the way you lose the game is if a particular passenger, if too many passengers are waiting at a station that becomes overcrowded, then the game ends. So basically you've got to keep getting passengers, away, picked up from stations. So if you have a very, very long line, a lot of passengers could sort of build up at one end of the line waiting for the thing to come. So that's why you might need a new line. And a carriage is a bit similar. You can add carriages to a line, and you can either make one train longer, so it can have 2 carriages so it can fit more people, or you can have 2 separate carriages going to 2 separate trains on the same line, which just obviously increases the frequency. I'm going to choose line because it's just a bit easier. And you can also re-edit things. So you can just pull things back. You have to be a bit careful how you do that. And like at any time, sort of redo your metro. You've got to be careful not to, like if you kind of pull a train off, that can be a bit tricky. Like it kind of resets somewhere else. And you can also pull, sometimes, I have to remember, I think there's a way you might be able to move a train manually, or maybe not. I might have that wrong. Yeah, I mean, some things that you've got to sort of be kind of aware of is you often don't want lots of the same shape in a row, because obviously you're never going to spawn a particular. So I'm going to make that line up here, for example, and see if that works, because it seemed like we were getting a lot of people. But yeah, if you have I have these 2 circles next to each other. Like anyone who spawns here doesn't want to go to a circle, so it means that I'm going to be building up too many people. What I might do, so it's really good to have, if you can alternate the different shapes essentially. What I might do is we might have our first. So this is showing, I don't have enough bridges to make another bridge connection essentially. So what shall I do? How about we come back here, we make this here. So this is going to be my kind of a very short line that does a good job of trying to shuttle people back and forth as quickly as possible. Maybe I'll move that off because that's a bit too much there. Actually, I can move, if I connect this. So yeah, I mean, often with these, the more direct connections you can add to a square, like each line at least has a square, is pretty useful. Yeah, and sometimes, often you'll get a lot of circles on the peripheries, and it's hard to really have that many. Sometimes it's just imperfect essentially. Looks like a moving Mondrian. Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, especially in the London colours match that. So I have a new locomotive, and I could take tunnels, or I could take an interchange. And remember, the way you lose is when one of the stations exceeds its capacity. So actually having interchange is quite useful, and it's easy to get passengers on and off. But I'm going to take tunnels because it's still pretty early, and I think it's going to be useful to have things. So I'm trying to, let's see, so where this blue line is a bit slow here. So I wonder, oh, we've got another square popping up here. Still happy with this. I don't think I need a circle. How many? I have 3 tunnels. So I could make a circle line somewhere. So for example, I could do this, make one big line like that. And maybe then I can make this a bit shorter, maybe. It's a bit of a rubbish line here, I feel like. Maybe this is a bit too, oh gosh. Yeah, I feel like, I wonder if I take this out, make it more like, yeah, it has to come back here. But maybe this can sort of come through here. Of course, new things always pop up in the place where you don't want it. I wonder if I'm going to need to just take this line altogether. If I bring this down here, maybe I need a new line that's going to come through. Need a quicker way to get in. Yeah, oh gosh. Okay, this is where it's all going to go off the rails a bit, I think. This line is just too long. Oh, it's all going wrong. You can see. What have I got in my? I do have another train, so maybe I can put another train on. Usually it's a bit firefighting. So this red line is a bit crazy. So what I can do is I'll put a new line going this way, and hopefully this will pick up a bunch of people. Yeah, and clear that out a bit. Okay, so I haven't lost completely yet. Excellent, excellent. New locomotive, excellent. Do I want interchange? I'll take another line. Yeah, and it's really nice because at different points you realize you can completely redesign the metro, because obviously as new stations come up, you have to rethink about that. For example, here, maybe I'll do a sort of a cross line, something like that, maybe. So it's a kind of express. I've got alternating stations, which is good, and hopefully it'll be reasonably quick. It's a bit weird to have 2 squares at the side here. Yeah, how are we going? None of the lines are too long. The longest line is red, but I've got two trains going on it. Also, everything sort of subtly gets quicker and quicker and quicker as the game goes on. And I should note your score is just the number of passengers you've successfully delivered, essentially. This is looking a little bit, this kind of very long loop. I wonder if there's a better way to do that. Well, that's easy. But it seems to be going okay, I guess. Maybe I should take this out, actually. It does seem a bit, maybe this line has to be shorter. Okay. Let's get some yellows this up here. Thanks very much for coming, gents, Axelos, and Josh. Thanks very much. Have a nice evening. Let's see how the rest of this goes. You take a quick break, have a cup of tea. But it just keeps going. Yeah, I think this yellow line is going to be a bit of a problem, actually. I wonder if I should just make it a little bit shorter. Got a locomotive. Or do I want even another line? Why not? More lines. Better for everybody. Okay. Something even. So maybe. Oh gosh. Maybe we make something a little bit shorter. And I can make a new line that sort of cuts through here. Mix things up. Oh, this is a new symbol here. So these are the kind of rarer symbols, these ones. So usually you're only going to have one of them in the whole map. So you've got to think about how you're funneling people efficiently to those spots, especially. Yeah, this red line, well, it shouldn't be too bad. I wonder if this blue line could just be made a bit quicker to come in. It doesn't have a triangle though, so I wonder. And maybe I'll just make it so it doesn't stop at that triangle. Yeah, because the more variety of different shapes you can have on the same line is also good, because that makes it easier to, it makes it easier to, deliver as many passengers, like without having to change, because they can kind of stay on the train. What have I got here? I've got nothing, and I've got one thing. Maybe I'll leave that up so you can see that. Great, not looking too bad. This blue line is looking a little bit full generally, but it's actually, I mean, there's moments where you can kind of step back and just enjoy what you're doing, I guess. Great. Oh yeah, thanks, Rasmus. Yes, let's chat soon. Yeah, hopefully maybe playtesting tomorrow. I'm not sure. Hal says there was an interesting thread about Minimetro from Transport Planner, and they said it's a good model for Busworks because you can change lines. Yeah, I guess, yeah, it obviously with train tracks you can't easily just reroute everything, but with buses it is able to do that. And actually they have a new mini it's part of Apple Arcade. They made another version which I think is more based on roads or different more different transport networks. I'm going to take a carriage. Do you have the link to that post, though, by any chance? Be interesting to see. Okay, oh gosh. I do not have another line. How are we going to fit this? Okay, so this is where you see now it's starting to have some problems. So I'm going to put something there to kind of alleviate some of the stress. All right, looks like this is going to be a really long line. I can make it a bit shorter, probably, I think. I can do that. Actually, maybe I can make this a loop here. This green line's not looking that useful, is it? Yeah, actually, I can make it sort of a bit more. So I have one extra carriage. So which is the line that looks like I need the most help? Probably this red line, actually, or maybe this blue line. So I'll add a. I see, yeah, because all these want to go to squares, so they're just waiting and waiting and waiting, and it always has to travel all the way back down. But thankfully, we're able to. Looks like we've been able to stem the tide. Hopefully, this red train will come along and pick these people up. Yeah, see here we've got the problem. This blue line is a bit of a tricky thing because there's all these circles in a row, which is not what you want to be doing. Can't do another. Oh, thanks for that. That's the link for those interested about this learning transit from Minimetro. Oh gosh, another special station. I think I might. I think I'm going to lose actually, because I don't think I'm going to be able to take enough people away from this station. That's it, I think. Yeah, game over. So 667 passengers over 41 days. Unfortunately. Yeah, I think my high score for this is something like 1500 or something. But I think I'm a bit out of practice, I must admit. But it's yeah, it's a really cool game because you do get better. You get some, not sense of mastery, but you know, as you play it a bit more and more, you realize certain patterns or how to that you don't want all those same shapes in a row and various things to make the thing do better. So yeah, but I think actually that will probably do me. I think I will embarrass myself too much with the daily challenge, and I realize I've gone a bit over time. But thanks very much for everybody for joining the stream today. Hope it was fun. Thanks very much for the kind words, and yeah, hope everyone has a nice dinner or the nice rest of the day. And I'll be back on Friday. I'll keep going at the same times, Mondays and Fridays. Let me know on Twitter at WiseGoldfish if you ever want something to be on the stream or you think there's a good game I should play. But thanks very much. Have a great week. All right. Thanks.